Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your life as well as your career to the next level. Today, my guest is Jenny To, and let me tell you about Jenny. She is an ICF PCC coach who is the director of River Life Coaching, and it's a partnership LTD, right? And her life coaching practice where she coaches individuals to define success on their own terms, personally and professionally. Jenny is passionate about empowering introverted women to remain authentic. She is also a lawyer and a mother of 3 and is living in Singapore. Jenny, our theme today, or what Jenny and I are going to be discussing, is gender bias issues, diversity, and inclusion. So please join me in welcoming my guest, Jenny To, as we talk about all of that. Jenny, so happy to have you as my guest.
Hi, Vicki. Thanks for the succinct introduction. And like you rightly said, I'm based in Singapore, so it's morning my time. And I know it's, this is probably the last call that you'll have for your night. Yeah.
Sometimes no. Sometimes when I do Australia or somewhere, it's I've been out at 11 o'clock at midnight.
Wow. You do have the energy to keep going.
Yeah, sometimes. So we always start with 2 easy questions for you. You kind of gave away the first one. I always ask, where do you call home? Where do you live? So have you lived in Singapore all your life?
No, actually my family, my parents and extended family are still living in Malaysia. Why I moved to Singapore is because I married a Singaporean. So in the second half of my adult life, I've spent it in Singapore. So I've been married to my husband now for close to 20 plus years. So I've been in Singapore for at least that long.
Well, yeah. I did in 2014 get to spend some time in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, for a Toastmaster convention, and thought about taking a side trip over to Singapore, but never did. So that is on my list of, hopefully I'll be able to speak sometime over there. That would be awesome. The second question is, I gave a brief bit about what you're doing today, but I'd love for you to share about your journey from, when you started out as that college student, and then you took a few paths, but something led you to do what you're doing today, from being a lawyer to now doing this. So share a little bit about that story, about this journey.
Sure. Thanks, Vicki. So yes, I was a trial attorney for the first part of my legal career. Then I moved to work in banks as an in-house legal counsel in financial derivatives. So it's very different from what I'm doing now. So the legal career also spanned about 25, 26 years. And why did I move to coaching? So legal work still challenges me intellectually. On and off, I will look for projects where I can still dive into the legal world and keep, that part of my knowledge alive. But why I dive into coaching is because I believe this is my calling in this so-called second season of my life. So Vicki, I'm a Christian, and I believe that this is what God is calling me into, to
awesome.
Serve people and create impact. However, it wasn't that easy because, we all think very rationally and intellectually. So it is really, as I would put it, a giant leap of faith, like,
Yeah.
really believing and trusting my purpose and taking that leap of faith. No regrets. However, there are challenging times, as you know, running a business. So what I do is really anchor in on why I'm doing this, and that keeps me motivated and focused.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, I do know. I spent over 40 years in the corporate world and retired and spent a couple years in the normal retirement. And then I just felt like there was, as you said, my calling from God was not to just sit at home, but to really try to help, especially women entrepreneurs,
Mm,
to really find their voice and to be able to lead, you know, with empathy and emotional intelligence. I think that the world needs more female leaders and strong, but in a way not strong like leading like a man, but really building communities out of their workforce as opposed
mm,
to just people that come in butts in a seat kind of thing.
mm.
So that leads us to really, what does your inner judge say to you today?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And like you said in my introduction, that I support introverted female leaders and professionals to
Yeah, me too.
define visibility on their own terms and also to be authentic. So a lot of my clients come to me. I have both male and female clients, and usually they're attracted to my profile, which clearly states I'm an introvert. Then they're saying, "Oh, Jenny, you're an introvert. I'm an introvert. I struggle because my manager just told me in order to secure that promotion, I need to be visible."
Yeah,
So I'm not saying that men don't face this challenge, but for women, it's almost like a double whammy. I'm a female and I need to be visible. So does this mean, like you said, lead as a man? Then they feel that, oh, that's not actually me. I cannot
yeah,
pretend to be someone I'm not. And I don't want to pretend to be someone I'm not. So I coach them to actually, in a way, change their belief or their mindset in viewing introversion not as a sign of weakness or disadvantage, but to use it as a strength. Because one of the key
yeah,
strengths of introversion is that we are able to really build strong one-on-one relationships because we are careful in choosing our relationships and we spend a lot of time investing in those relationships. So that's the strength of an introvert. So sometimes when they feel that, oh, I need to be visible, does this mean that I need to, be louder in meetings? Not necessarily.
yeah,
Yes, you still need to have your extroverted spurt in meetings, but are you able to cultivate good, strong working relationships with the people attending those meetings, or during those presentations, are you able to engage authentically because you're very passionate about what you're talking about? Yeah.
yeah. And I'm an introvert as well. And what I found was that in the beginning, it was there always that lack of confidence, which is why I do this podcast, Find Your Leadership Confidence, but also that imposter syndrome, or you just didn't find your voice, and you sat in a room so oftentimes and heard ideas that you had, but you weren't confident enough to share, or
Mm,
you shared it and some not female said it in a different way and everybody agreed to it. And it was like, well, that's what I said. It just wasn't in that way. But I love that you talked about the volume, or the whenever we think about power, but I can say something in a tone that is not screaming and yelling at a person, but can be more impactful and received much more readily than someone that's yelling and screaming. And
mm,
so that's why I coach on both sides. And I love that you mentioned that, because I think an introvert thinks that they have to be that
mm,
walk in the room and everybody's eyes turn to you because you're commanding it. Well, if you walk in a room and never say a word, but the way you carry yourself will have people want to know you and talk with
mm.
you.
And Vicky, you were saying in your question earlier, what's the inner critic saying, right? So a lot of these women, when they go to a meeting, their inner critic is saying that, are you sure you have the right to be there? Have you
Yeah.
earned your right to be at the table? And it's just that shift, right? To say that I've been invited to the meeting, therefore I have just as much right to be at the table, just as much right as anyone in that meeting to be heard. So it's just that little shift, understanding that you have value to share, and then also recognizing within yourself, what am I the subject matter expert in? What's my purpose in this meeting? And even setting an intention for yourself. Okay, I do want to share this because if I don't share it and I hold it in, what value or benefit am I depriving the others of? Because for introverts, we introspect a lot. So like you said, we're thinking about ideas. Is it good enough? Is it 100% accurate? Then only I will share. Well, just ask yourself, what's the purpose of that meeting? Is it really necessary to be 100% accurate? And if it's not, if it's a brainstorming meeting, why not? Why don't I just put myself out there and just experiment? So I often encourage my clients to use a safer meeting in the sense that she's comfortable with the people in the meeting and to practice speaking up, build that muscle. So when you're in a high stakes conversation, you've already built that muscle to be able to say, hey, I've got something to say here and I will say it. And like you said, doesn't have to be loud, but just communicate clearly and communicate naturally.
Yeah. I love to coach people and just listen to their presentation or the role play, maybe the conversation they want to have, so that you can give them, this isn't the first time you've said it, and you can get the reaction from that nonpartisan party that's, oh, well, this is how I felt when you said those things. And it really does help to build your confidence when you go into that room, maybe with the people that you need to impress. Maybe takes away some of that anticipation or worry.
And I guess, Vicky, that example that you gave, that the certain person, shared don't say shared your idea, shared that idea that you were going to share, but you shared it and then the other person shared it, but everyone said, recognize his idea. One little trick, but it takes some courage to do it, is to say, hey, Bob, thanks for bringing that up. It's also what I was saying and I would like to add. Right. So you kind of leverage that. Yeah. But it does take courage. I must admit, even for myself, to say that, oh, okay, now I want to be heard, and not to put him down or anything, or not to put myself on a pedestal, but it's like, hey, thanks for bringing that up. And that's a good point, which I was also thinking about, and I would like to add. Right. So it shows collaboration and it shows quite a natural flow to it as well.
Yeah. And I think the way you handle that is really important to being able to get the support and the buy-in from the rest of the people in the room. If they didn't see you attacking that other person or arguing and say, well, I just said that, type of thing. But if you do it in a way that's appreciative and giving them kudos for having the idea or whatever, I think the rest of the team, the coworkers, the peers will respect you more.
And I'm not saying that women shouldn't express emotions in a meeting, especially if it's not fair. However, because we have this stereotype that, oh, women are naturally more emotional and men are not, although, you've seen anger outbursts from men as well, but somehow it's viewed as justified. So one way of doing it is, if you are angry or you are upset, you can state the emotion. Like, if you see me as upset, it is because I am upset due to, and then you include the factual reason, right? So then people are saying, okay, this person's has strong emotions because, right? So, if you want to really express emotion, if I look upset, it's because yeah, then people will know, oh, it's not because, she's just emotional, right?
Right. So what are some gender biases, issues that are in today's workforce, work environments?
One of the common things that come up in my coaching conversation with clients is I have to prove myself again and again. So even for women who's been in the organization for 10 plus years, in order to secure that promotion, there's this belief, and I'm not saying it's a wrong belief, because sometimes externally, there's also that belief, that organizational culture, that women somehow have to prove themselves again and again. Yeah, so that's one thing that comes up. And I think we're moving in the right direction to correct this, but it's not eliminated completely. Yeah.
No.
So it's more
No.
like asking yourself, if I want that promotion, what do I want to do to get it, within still feeling authentic? So sometimes it's also pushing through to talk about your success and accomplishments. So it doesn't mean you have to do more. It just means you have to talk about what is already successful. And a lot of times women tend to say, if I work hard and you know me, you should know what I've done, right? But if your boss is managing 9 people, he can't remember exactly what you've done. More so if the other people are more extroverted and are always telling him what they've done. You are quietly doing your work. So it's about saying, I've done this, or this is the project that I'm doing together with my team, and we have reached this milestone. So sometimes women feel uncomfortable about talking about, I did this. But if you're a manager or you run a project with a team, elevate the team, elevate the project. In a way, indirectly, your boss or management will know you did it, because who runs the team and who runs the project, right? Without using so much I. So it's really asking yourself, I'm already successful. How can I share this authentically?
Right. And I think it's also important to understand that, and this is for men and women, that if you seek to get that promotion, that job where you may have to lead a team or be over a department or whatnot, you need to, and I think it's the organization's obligation to make sure that you are trained in leadership, not just, oh, well, let's promote Sally or David because they did really great job in selling or in PowerPoint or in Excel or whatever, because you have to deal with people and you have to be able to do that, lead them, not just manage them. And I think that's where we sometimes fall short, especially with women, in giving them the opportunity to have the training for those soft skills that are going to make them impactful, but also confident to know that a lot of those soft skills they have. They just have to recognize that they are very much an asset to them.
And it's important for, the senior women who've gone ahead in the organization to kind of pay it forward, either by mentoring or sponsoring or building a strong community, right? So often in issues relating to gender, sometimes we are our worst enemy. So sometimes some of the senior female leaders felt that I got here the hard way. Right? So, and then they impose that standard on the younger ones coming up. So it's also about the self-awareness of the leader, right? So to see whether they want to pay it forward to the younger generation.
And we've talked a lot about just women, but the diversity in our workforce today is huge. We have 5 different generations. We have multiple cultures, and this global environment. So the way that we communicate with all of these different diverse situations is really takes a little bit of work right now, and it's not going to change it.
Yeah. And it's easy for organizations to come up with a nice diversity and inclusion policy, right? So I read somewhere, I can't remember, I can't credit the author because I can't remember who it was, but he used this analogy of a party. So diversity is, inviting everyone to the party. Inclusion is making sure that everyone plays a part or has a role in the party. But what's missing in a lot of companies' diversity and inclusion policy is this sense of belonging. So belonging means you're able to kick back and be relaxed in the party, whether you want to be the life of the party or the more introverted ones to go to a quiet corner with 1 or 2 people. So it's the sense of belonging that is difficult to articulate in policies. How do you define that? So it's actually for the manager, for actually each employee to see how they can foster that sense of belonging. And it involves open conversations, acceptance of each person's uniqueness, and recognizing what strengths they have and can contribute to, the team or to the organization. So it's a lot of work. So although you have a nice diversity and inclusion policy, is everyone playing their part to ensure this sense of belonging?
Wow. Well, time has just flown by. You and I could talk about all this. I have many more questions. We'll have to have a part 2 because I think
that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think this is
Yeah.
this is just something that I think it's either on people's minds or should be on people's minds, and so I definitely want to have you back. But for those that want to know more about how to connect with Jenny, I'm going to share my slide. You know that I always do this, and I always remind those that are listening that if you don't have a pen and paper right now to write this down, go get one right now. I will have all this information on my YouTube channel, which is Vicki Noethling. So please subscribe, as well as my findyourleadershipconfidence.com. And that website is riverlifecoaching.com. Again, riverlifecoaching.com. On Facebook, again, the same, River Life Coaching. On LinkedIn is her name, Jenny-Toe-PCC. And Toe, just for those just listening, is TOH. And then Instagram is River Life Coaching. I'm going to turn it over to Jenny to be able to give you a little bit about what you can find when you go to her website, any resources that might be helpful, or links to different tools, as well as where she spends the most time in social media. So if you wanted to DM her, you would want to go there so you could get more instant reaction. So Jenny, it's all yours.
Thanks, Vicki. Yes. So yes, when you visit my website, I have a programs page that shows all my coaching programs there. However, the page that you want to probably start with is my content hub page, where I have my articles, my videos, and as well as when this podcast is updated, Vicki, it's going to go there as well into my podcast library where I appear as a guest in. Yeah, I spend most of my time on LinkedIn, so definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you drop me a private message there, I'll be happy to respond and engage with you there. I'm offering this complimentary 30 minutes call for anyone who's curious about coaching or who's curious about what it takes for an introvert to be authentic in the noisy world. Happy to jump into this conversation with you. Yeah, and the link is there.
Awesome. Fantastic, Jenny. It's just been great. And we do, we'll try to get this in the next couple weeks, part 2 of this, so we can delve a little bit deeper into the diversity and inclusion part of the conversation too. But it's been great chatting with you. I know that the guests have got a lot of golden nuggets from what you shared today.
Thank you, Vicki. It's been a pleasure.
So as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.